So let's try starting this again, and I think just in case, I'm going to stop screen sharing with you all.
Okay.
No problem. I mean, I actually think I can pull up exactly what you're looking at in my RP Gamer email.
Okay. So let me know if we're back live again. I think we should be, because OBS seems to be working properly at the moment.
We're back live.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that minor, hopefully minor disconnection. Anyone who is watching, my streaming application crashed. We're still at some point going to switch to XSplit, but I haven't gotten all that changed over yet. So anyway, so what we were about to say was, so the story behind this is, I think we were running our Kickstarter, and we already knew Anna Marie. We'd met her at PAX and everything, and I think she found out about our Kickstarter, and you messaged me or us, I think it was you were asking about colorblind options.
Yes.
Do you want to maybe explain any more background on that?
Okay. Well, colorblindness is rare, and actually more rare in women than men, because it's attached to your X chromosome. So guys only have one X chromosome, so if they have it, they're colorblind. Women have to have it on both of their X chromosomes in some fashion to be colorblind. Mm-hmm. And without getting totally technical, there are 3 different kinds of colorblindness, which is red, green colorblind, blue, yellow colorblind, and totally colorblind.
I can simulate it here, I think.
Yes.
So, do you know the technical terms? Because the app I'm using actually just has technical terms.
There's deuter something, proto something.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the other ones.
And tritanopia.
Yes, okay. I think tritanopia is the full colorblindness.
Okay. I'm trying to remember, because I probably should have researched this more, but I was just using these apps to kind of simulate, just to visually, and just for anyone watching, I have an app running on this one monitor on my computer right now that simulates the 3 different types. So right now we're looking at what you see on the stream on my screen sharing here is deuteranopia, common
which
color
is what
blindness,
I have.
which I assume is red green, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, most colorblindness apps actually have a slider within both deuter and proto. Mm-hmm. And because depending on how sensitive you are to green versus red, mm-hmm. They can help you adjust a little bit.
Yeah, and this one, it only has kind of full blast, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks
so
like
I'm
I can't
only
turn this
technically
down,
a little colorblind.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, most people, it really varies from person to person how they find out they're colorblind. Most people find out from they go to an optometrist and they basically get a bunch of numbers within a bunch of field of dots stuck in their face.
Yeah.
They have to tell the doctor what number is in the field. For whatever reason, I never happened to have that test as a child. Mm-hmm. Or I was so borderline when I was younger that they didn't really say anything. But we ended up doing, you're in high school science class, and it's like, let's do all of your genetic markers. Can you curl your tongue? Can you, touch your, is your ear attached at your lobe? And it's like, okay, who sees 51 in this field? And so that's actually how I found out that I was colorblind.
Awkward.
I had no idea until I was 16.
Wow. Huh.
And so, to me, that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because you learn colors when you're young, and people point at a square and says, this is pink. Uh-huh. And so you never doubt in your mind that you look at this square and people tell you that it's pink.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so having never been established as this is green, but you don't really know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I never had a bias against a specific color. And because of that, growing up, just because I had to adapt, it's like, okay, this looks like green, but it also looks like a lot of other colors to me. You start to learn tricks to figure out how you can tell which color it really is. So, I mean, I can pick out a lot of greens because it's like, okay, well, you match green in clothing with, sometimes you match it with red, but green pairs with like browns and some yellows and some blues, and some purples, but you don't put green with like, I don't know, white.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a combination you see that often, but you do see red with a lot of white.
Yeah.
you see green with pink, but you don't necessarily see red with pink. And so, I mean, it's not a foolproof system. Obviously, Valentine's Day comes along and there's red and pink explosions.
Yeah.
But, it's something that you just learn. And, growing up on video games, you sort of just learn to adapt to trying to figure out what's on the screen.
Mm-hmm. So just as an example, I pulled up, this is the full spectrum from like, red on the left to through like yellow, green, blue, purple, magenta on the right. And so this is what the simulator is outputting right now versus, normal vision here. So I mean, I guess I'm wondering, like, well, you said yours isn't like full color blindness. You kind of have like a percentage of color blindness. Like, can you is there a huge difference for you when I look at this spectrum versus this one?
I don't have any way of seeing it right now.
Oh yeah, you're probably, since you're 30 seconds behind, or are you not? You're probably not even watching the stream, I guess.
No, I figured I'd keep my lag down.
Oh, okay. Oops.
Sorry.
Well, okay. Well, maybe I'll try to screen share again, and we'll hope that we don't crash.
Okay.
So, are you getting that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this would be normal, and then this would be red green. Like, I assume you can probably see some difference between the two when I switch back and forth here.
Yeah, because I can see you dropping down a menu.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Huh.
But
so,
like,
I mean, I think the easiest way to describe my particular red-green color blindness is the world probably looks very washed out.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's missing some colors. So, like, my favorite color is actually purple, but as we've discovered, I don't see purple in the way most people do. I see a lot of green things as purple.
Oh, huh. So, like, looking at our set of colors here, or set of characters here, so I'm, this one, when it's normal, I see this as purple. So what you're saying, like, I mean, basically that's the most vivid color on this.
Absolutely.
On this panel
The fourth one in all of those columns is absolutely the most vivid.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one to the left in versions 1, 4, 5, and 6 are sort of a lighter version of that.
This one here, if you can see my mouse moving, which is marked as cyan on mine, or like the kind of like the blues. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
And you said that one is kind of the next prettiest color?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah,
the corn color is nice, but they're so close to each other that I'd be worried about someone that had blue-yellow color blindness.
Yeah, is that protanopia or tritanopia, do you know?
I don't recall.
I think it's probably tritanopia, because this one, when I turn the tritanopia on, I can see red and blue but not yellow. And what we'd kind of gone through is, like, I did all these, this variant, the system of variants, kind of like trying to get the most difference between all four. And when I turn on the tritanopia setting, in the one that's circled here, the green, what's labeled green, which is this one, and the cyan blue, at least in the simulator, they kind of look like whitish blue and just more blue. So yeah, they actually are kind of similar. But that was like the greatest difference I could come up with. Like down here, these two look a little more distinct. Because this lime green is more like yellow tinted in example number 6, and when I switch to tritanopia, you can see like it goes a little more brown compared to the one above in test number 5. Like test number 6 probably works maybe a little better for blue-yellow color blindness, whereas test 5 works a little better maybe for red-green. And I apologize to anyone on the stream if we're using kind of like incorrect terms, because like I said, I probably could have researched this a bit more, but it seemed more effective to like just kind of run it by people and see what they said. So I would be interested if anyone with color blindness is watching the stream, if they look at these and they say like, oh, test number 1 looks better to me versus test 6. But Pause, you had said that number 5 was definitely the best. Kind of, you could tell the most difference between the 4.
Yeah, that was definitely my winning category.
And if we get a little more input from anyone, I mean, we could like kind of let me turn or lock something in the Photoshop file so we can move it around here. I mean, like if someone can tell a little more difference in that set, like the slightly more kind of yellowish one of these, then we might vary it up a little bit, like kind of mix and match between these tests. Just because, like, yeah, we probably, before we finalize it, probably should run it by a few other different types of color blindness, but I only know anyone who's red-green, personally. I don't know anyone with the tritanopia.
It is definitely the least common. Because I don't know anybody that has it. We think that that's what my dad has, and that's where I got it from his side.
Yeah.
Because he's not red-green, which is weird. Because in theory, if I'm red-green, so should he be.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, I guess, so just to kind of explain to the viewers, like, what we were thinking about doing, I mean, this mock-up would be specifically for 4-player mode, so that if, let's say, all 4 people picked the rogue and you're playing, you want to be able to tell the difference between player 1 and player 2. So we were trying to come up with, you know, essentially what is the best 4-color scheme, because a lot of games do, like, they just do like red, yellow, green, blue, or something like that. But of course, if you're red, green colorblind, that may not actually work for you. Like, you may not be able to tell the difference between red and green in that scheme, and then those two just look like gray or you know, whatever to some users. And so, like, you know, it's not going to be perfect. Like, it was actually really hard coming up with, like, if we were only doing 3 players, that would be way easier to find like 3 that are distinct. But trying to do 4 is really hard, and 5 would probably be like nearly impossible.
But
so,
I appreciate that you guys went out of your way to do this, because most developers are like, nah, colorblind, live with it.
yeah, well, and I wonder to what degree the fact that games have never addressed it might have driven away people who were colorblind, who just like tried a game as a kid and they're like, I can't tell the difference between these things. They get frustrated, they never play games again. Maybe
Right,
you know,
and
there's
I mean,
probably
the
someone with
nice
that
thing
story.
is now you have sites that are actually specifically dedicated towards promoting games that are for people who have vision issues or some sort of physical disability.
Yeah, like,
so it's nice, because if I'm concerned about a game, it's like, wow, this game is really colorful. I can actually hop onto websites that actually, they will eventually break down whether a game is good for what sort of colorblindness and stuff like that.
And Able Gamers is one that we've been in some contact with in the past.
That's actually the one that I read the most.
Yeah, is it just ablegamers.com? I forget if it's an S at the end or maybe just Able
I think
Gamer.
it's Able Gamers, plural.
Yeah, I'll just check
kind of
really quick
go
in
to it.
case anyone's interested. Yeah, ablegamers.com, if anyone watching is interested. This is the website. Trying to zoom in on their logo. So yeah, so we probably get in touch with them again when we're kind of finishing up and readdressing some of this stuff, because it hasn't been super high on the to-do list since we're trying to finish features, and it would also be really hard for us to kind of support this sort of feature set throughout the entire game for everything. But what I have been trying to do, just since we had that conversation, is things like, well, the elements that we have are very kind of color dependent, but I've been trying to make it so that if you see an elemental effect in the game, you can distinguish it not only by color but also by shape. And so that's part of the reason I make this little chart for myself here that shows kind of like, if you have particle effects for these different elements, yes, they come in a color, but they also come in a shape or effect type that is distinct from the others. So like the poison stuff here is more kind of like bubbles and globular, versus the actually a very similar color for the lightning effect or the fire effect or whatever. But I'm actually, since I haven't tested this set in with color blindness simulation, like this is what it would look like in red, green, and then This is actually, that's kind of pretty in a way, but that's what it would look like
Yeah.
with Tritonopia. So I guess, pause. What like when you look at this, I mean, can you? I guess this isn't a really good example because it's not in the game, but I mean, what are your kind of thoughts on distinguishing between these different elements?
No, I love this idea, and it's funny because when I go to companies and try out their games at PAX and E3 and stuff like that, this is actually something that I specifically suggest them. I'm like, if you're gonna have colors that are really similar, try to distinguish it via shape, because it's. I mean, I play, for example, Puzzles and Dragons, and I don't have a problem playing Puzzles and Dragons, even though they have a bunch of orb colors that are basically all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that
they
would be even more difficult to play some of those puzzle games that are just like color matching, like which I guess is probably why Bejeweled actually uses different shapes of jewels. I mean, maybe that could be one reason.
If you ever want to get a really good laugh, watch Giant Bomb when Jeff Gersman is playing a puzzle game, because he's completely colorblind.
Oh no.
And so he just kind of, every once in a while, he'll just sort of drop his pieces, and we're sitting there going, why did he do that? It's like, he can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
So shapes are cool, and they add not only dynamic to people who are colorblind in some fashion, but they're cool, even if you could see them completely.
And the other thing that we were trying to do, if for some like puzzle, like we have some blocks in the game that you can like say a block with a fire rune, and you can strike it with a fire weapon. If we had just made that red, it would obviously be be an issue for someone with color blindness. So what we have kind of dedicated ourselves to do is put these runes on them, and there's a little bit of memorization involved, but your weapon would have something that says like, oh, this is this weapon does fury damage, so you'd see this icon both on your weapon in the status screen and on this block in the game. So it's really just like symbol matching at that point, which would also be that could be an issue for someone who has like some level of like actual blindness or just other kind of sight issues. But like I haven't really, like, we do theoretically have some zoom support in the game. We just don't have a way for the player to control that quite yet. But it could be something that, and I don't know if we can do it for this game, but it might make sense, like in later games, to just allow the user to set their zoom at like 2x. If they have, like, if they just have like full blindness or to some degree, like legally blind kind of issues, then they, maybe zooming the game world up would allow them to play better or see these symbols better, or whatever the case may be. Because I remember reading an article probably like a month ago now about how the PS4 lets you zoom into certain areas of the screen, and that was helping people with blindness issues see like parts of the UI. So it's something that's kind of been on my mind. I just, I don't know how quickly we would be able to support some of that stuff, and maybe it's something we kind of add to our engine later or something like that. But it's definitely something I would like to support even more at some point, like even after we finish Delvers.
And I mean, it's just exciting to see an indie developer even having this conversation, because going out of your way to support colorblindness is time intensive. And when you're an indie company, time is your most, valuable resource, and it's the one that you are the most miserly about in general. So I'm kind of excited about this, because it's like there are games by AAA developers that are like not in any way comfortable for people that are colorblind. And so you have to find a game that is, and when you do, you doubly appreciate it for that.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like, I mean, it was actually kind of an interesting problem to try to solve, just to try to, figure out what are these 4 colors for these characters that would work. But then also, like, I actually think this is a prettier kind of combination of colors than if we had just done, like, red, yellow, green, blue, like, like most games would do. And it makes it feel a little less typical, and that it goes with the color scheme that I've been trying to use for the game in general anyway, which doesn't have a lot of just like bold reds for characters or whatever. Usually I'll choose something that's a little magenta or a little orange, and I don't know if that makes the world prettier or less pretty to anyone with various degrees of color blindness, but it actually kind of worked out here with this color palette. Because the colors on these rogues actually kind of go pretty well with the rest of the game world. And so now we just have to figure out kind of the trick of like whether we save all of these as another texture set that gets loaded in 4-player mode, or I was doing some other tests. I'll pull this window up where we were just using straight up tinting, like basically trying to figure out how do we reproduce this in the game, because the game would either have to have like new hoods for the rogue in this color kind of in the texture set, or we do some tinting like this. But we could very easily make the character lights those colors, or put a light on the ground underneath the character too. So there are several ways I think we could emphasize it just with the way the game engine works.
I kind of like that glow idea, because when you're on a 4-player screen, things can get really hectic, and you really want to have, as a very, very visible fashion, a way to identify yourself.
Yeah, and that's
so I love that sort of glowy. Yeah. I think that's.
It also has like an effect on the how like we even treat the color scheme for the UI itself, or even just like choosing your characters, because like sure, number could be there, but like one of the problems if you're doing like combat stuff where you're actually like fighting each other is like you don't want the number like over the character, because like that, like what if you're using some sort of spell that's supposed to make you invisible? Like it kind of ruins it, doesn't it? So yeah, I prefer the glowing thing.
You sort of need to make sure that your heads-up information is understandable. Because, for example, we went to the Midwest Gaming Classic last month, and they always have like a couple of indie games that are in development there. So we went and tried one out, and it was like this game where you start out as a really basic animal, and as you go through the game, you unlock additional parts. So you can upgrade your arms, and you can upgrade your legs, and you can change to a different animal head. And each of those parts give you a different sort of power to them. And they had like basically bows on top of the characters' heads, and in 2 different colors, which was red and green, with the exact same saturation and all the it was just 2 different shades that were identical. And then they had like a little box down at the bottom that was outlined in that additional shade. And I mean, Chris and I were playing, and we're like, until I changed the head of my character, I couldn't tell you which character was which, and I couldn't even tell you which character was associated with which box at the bottom either.
Right.
So it was like, this isn't good for me. I can't figure out what information I'm supposed to be getting out of this.
And I was actually trying to find our the UI that we had done for multiplayer, and it seems as though Dropbox may have lost some of our files, so I guess I'm glad I caught that, but unfortunately I probably won't be able to show anyone right now what our UI looked like. But I guess like in summary, we in the corners of the screen you would have like player 1's hearts up in the top left, and player 2's up in the top right, and they would actually be, the hearts themselves would be color coded to match that character's color and light and everything. I guess.
So I'm panicking right now and I'm looking for it. So
we can roll it back. It's it'll be fine, but unfortunately I won't be able to dig it up on the stream. That was a cool mock-up though. Like fortunately I have that sort of stuff backed up in a couple different ways. We've had Dropbox problems with that folder before, so I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, so what else should we look at?
I think one thing we should probably talk about is how far this game has come since I first saw it.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
sometimes I feel like it hasn't come very, very far at all.
Because I mean, let me think. The first PAX that I saw the game at was, I want to say it was 2011. Is it 2011 or 2012?
I think it was 2012. Yeah.
Okay, it's been a while.
Yeah, and that was before our Kickstarter.
Yeah, and it was pre-Kickstarter, and I was just kind of wandering around, essentially what was going to become the Indie Mega Booth.
Yeah, well, and it was the Mega Booth, but it wasn't really branded very much. Right. I think it was like Mega Booth number 2, and they were like, Kelly still had a day job and all of that.
Yeah, so it is what is now definitely known as the Indie Mega Booth brand. And so we were kind of wandering through there, and they're tiny booths. They're all squished together. Like that year, there was at least space to walk in the aisles. They've sort of eliminated that space at this point, so it's really